Welcome to a game between dyth68 and izirayd. Here we have dyth68 in blue starting with tanks. And we see here that izirayd starts with rovers and a recon commander. So Dyth requested this replay, and yeah, um, let's see what he thinks of this game and what I think of this game. So it looks like we have a decently heavy raiding start. There's no cons built directly, and it looks like izirayd is starting with some darts and they're really good scouts for rovers, while tanks, yeah, the best raiders to start with is usually the Kodachi, because blitzes are really expensive at 300 and Kodachis is cheaper at 175. So usually you have to go for Kodachis early in a 1v1 to be able to raid on a map. And Kodachis, they have been problematic before, and they're still. I still say if you're not ready for them, they can be hard to deal with. But as rovers, it's kind of like you want to get close with your Scorcher, and if you can just get close and stay close to Kodachi, one Scorcher can kill the Kodachi. So let's see here. That's the first engagement. Oh, and this Scorcher is close, but izirayd is running away. That was a bad play from izirayd. That Scorcher could easily have killed that Kodachi by just staying in range. Instead, he loses his darts. A dart is pretty decent if you can get in and slow down the Kodachi, but yeah, you have to be pretty good. You have to have pretty good timing and micro to be able to do that. So yeah, that's surprising that izirayd didn't go for the kill there. He could easily have gone for the kill. And since the Kodachi also has a quick repair rate, it starts repairing immediately, which helps a bit. And yeah, nice dodge here from the commander. And this dart, if it tries to go in against a running Kodachi, it will die. And oh, the dart didn't get a stun off. Yeah, the dart targeting can be a bit weird if you're turning too much with the dart. If you keep turning circles with dart, it's gonna miss quite a bit, or rather, it won't have time to aim. So usually you wanna drive straight with the Kodachi to make it sure that it fires against targets. Oh, and there we get a slow. Yeah, that should allow them. Oh, it's so close. Yeah, and the Kodachi has barely survived, but yeah, it should. Yeah, it can't do much. At least he has control over this area, and izirayd can't just expand there. And at this situation, yeah, you can't really chase down. This is iffy. Like, you need to get in range if you want to chase down a Kodachi. It's hard to change from max range. Because, yeah, the Kodachi is just a little bit faster. But now, on the other hand, Dyth, yeah, why is these two here? If these had been here, I'm not sure what he was focusing on. I guess he was focusing on this Kodachi. And that made him lose a max. And as we can see here, both players are pretty conservative with how many cons they make. And it looks like, yeah, on this map, wind is absolutely the most favorable thing to make, I'd say. Because, yeah, you get a good minimum wind up here of 0.8, so wind is definitely the way to go. And that's the damage Kodachi there. Yeah, it killed another dart. That's good. So, yeah. So at this point, 3 Kodachis is actually kind of scary for the rover player. It's kind of hard to deal with Scorchers and darts if they're close together. But on the other hand, yeah, he has nothing here. He should be seeing it on radar. Having a radar at this position is good. But yeah, not having anything here. I guess he has 2 tank cons. They're not gonna die easily to a Scorcher. If you just try to move away from the Scorcher is gonna have trouble to keep in minimum range. So yeah. We can see here that while Dyth's units are all the way over here, yeah, he has trouble contesting all over the map because, yeah, Kodachis are somewhat expensive. But yeah. So this is a scary amount of Scorchers to face alone with your commander. And yeah, he sent in a weak Kodachi there. If you can avoid it, you should try to avoid it, especially when you're just trying to kill a single Scorcher. Try to keep damaged Kodachis behind, so they can be back and self-repair. Yeah, but at this point, izirayd was almost e-stalling there for a moment, but he managed to solve his issues. And this is the perfect for the position for the Kodachis to be in. Is yeah, just have a few Kodachis here, and yeah, it's really hard to chase them down with Scorcher because these Scorcher are going to take so much splash damage from T Kodachis that they can't really approach it. Yeah, although one Scorcher here, one Lotus turret here, yeah. Would you want to run into that? It's questionable. But see here, you get just 2 free Scorchers there, just because, yeah, trying to chase the Kodachis is a death sentence. So, while Scorchers, like 3-4 Scorchers, they can take out the lone commander. Well, if you're using Kodachis, they're gonna burn each other and they're gonna like damage each other, and they don't do as much single target damage at close range. So yeah, that's one advantage the Rover player have, is they can dive in for the commander with relatively few Scorchers, while the the tank player can't really return in the favor. And this is the thing, if you cast like Fencer out of positions and the Scorchers aren't in front of it, yeah, you can just go in and kill a few Fencers until the Scorchers get in position. So yeah, now, yeah, izirayd has been a little bit ahead, but not that much. So yeah, the Fencers here are a bit out of position, and you might be able to punish that. You turn a little bit too close. Like you were driving sideways to the Scorchers. Driving sideways to the Scorcher doesn't give any specific advantage to you, so yeah, you should have probably retreated. It's in a similar situation, like Scorchers are fine trading blows sideways because they have a little bit more range than the Kodachis. So yeah, you wanna, how would I say it? You wanna make sure to, like, if the Scorcher are driving sideways you might as well retreat in this situation. But you still damage them, but you didn't finish off that many. And this is also a difficult problem to deal with against Rovers, is a few Fencers. Because if they have proper support with Scorchers or Daggers, it's hard to actually get to the Fencers. Yeah. In this position, I think you were a bit lucky that izirayd didn't just go for your commander. He could easily have killed your commander in this position. But you were lucky that he was gonna try to chase his Kodachis, and you got to the expansion first and killed it. So you traded a little bit of expansion, but yeah, you keep your commander alive and you killed an expansion. So a decent outcome. You couldn't hold this position anyway. So it looks like izirayd is going for a slow combo with Rippers and Fencers. And yeah, if you can't outmaneuver it, at this point I think you're a fair bit behind, a little bit behind. Not too much, but yeah. You accidentally, yeah, this is not too a good position to attack. While, yeah, Minotaurs, they do really well against Fencers and Rippers, so yeah, preempting this Minotaur switch might be a good idea. Let's see if izirayd switches it up, but yeah. But now you, since you couldn't go and regroup with the Kodachis, now your Kodachis are out of position and you have little to contest these Scorchers coming in the middle. It's a balance act. You want to be able to raid with Scorchers and keep the Scorchers tied up, while you also want to preserve them. So yeah. And now again, your commander is yet again in a dicey position. In this point, I will try to build Lotus turrets as fast as I can to maybe stay alive. Being at the edge like this might help, but I think the Scorcher is gonna get this commander now. Yeah, they can just close in the distance and get the commander. And that's something that's in return not as easy to do as for the tank player. Yeah. So how would you approach rippers? Yeah, Kodachis, if there are a line of rippers like this, Kodachis are really bad. Ogres, on the other hand, kinda soft counter them. It's in a situation you can't just run an ogre into a line of rippers and expect them to win. But if you're kind of like skirmishing the rippers, you're gonna outrange it, and if you're not committing that heavily, you can easily outtrade levelers in a situation like this. So yeah, it's a thing that you might find yourself in against your will. Like if the enemy has fencers and rippers, you might be forced into making defenses with emissaries and ogres. Ogres are sort of a tricky unit to deploy. They need, like, if a fair amount of Scorchers can just surround it and go in and kill it, or even just darts and slow it and kill it with, if it's alone, yeah, then the ogre is gonna struggle. So you need to always have a fair amount of support for the first ogres that comes out. I generally recommend it, because otherwise it might run down. This is a situation that's kind of dicey, but you have 2 ogres here, so you should be fine. This should be a bad trade for izirayd. Yeah, he loses 2 Ravagers there. Yeah. Oh, and it looks like he's gonna catch your emissary while he's out of position. That's a bit bad. Yeah, these Kodachis were a bit out of position. And yeah, this could be troublesome, but luckily you have an ogre that's just got finished. It should be able to finish these unspread Scorchers easily. So at this point, it becomes a lot about preserving your units and making good trade. Like, yeah, you can outrange rippers and skirmish against them. And with 3 ogres like this in a close proximity, yeah, they're gonna protect each other against darts and scorches mostly. And Ravagers, if Ravagers try to chase the ogres, they're gonna take quite a while to catch up with the ogres, because Ravagers aren't that much faster. They're just yeah, they're just 19 Elmos per second faster than an ogre. So yeah, Ravagers take a fair amount of time to catch up to ogres. So while Ravagers can prevent the ogres from advancing, I wouldn't say Ravager is a counter to the ogre. It's just a situation if you are outmaneuvered and you're surrounded, the Ravagers can surround it and go in and get a quick kill. But on the other hand, the Ravagers can't run down the ogre and from just one angle and expect to be cost effective. And if it's a bunch of ogres like this, yeah, it's really hard to approach it if you can't surround it. Again, your ogres are a little bit damaged, which makes it, yeah, makes it easier to finish them off. Yeah. Despite izirayd having a much larger army here, I'd say the trade was fairly even there. But it's also in a position like this, you want to preserve, like, tanks has the capability of preserving their units. And izirayd, isn't he gonna jump in the water? His jump was on timeout. If you had been quicker ahead, you would have closed the distance and finished off the commander. Now he's gonna be able to go to the edge and escape, I think. Yeah. That was a bit unattentive of you. I guess you were trying to save the ogres. But yeah, if you're facing commandos with minotaurs, if there's basically no other units there, just go in at point blank range. Like, the commander can't. The commander has a harder time dodging the shot, while the commander's weapon is usually a super accurate weapon that it doesn't matter if what range the Minotaur is at. So it's alone that I would just suggest going in with a Minotaur as close as you can. And if it's a young commander, yeah, it helps to go in close as well and chase after it, because Minotaurs are rather slow. And this is where, yeah, you can chase with Kodachi's Ravagers. It's kind of iffy. Like, yeah, the Kodachis are gonna lose out badly. Yeah, and here's another lone Minotaur. It's like, yeah, if the enemy is able to catch the Minotaur with overwhelming numbers, yeah, they can get cut down easily by surrounded by Darts or Scorcher or whatever. You really need to be careful with how you send out your Minotaurs. Like, you could have gotten the commander, but then you still, it's, yeah. And the switch to hovers is interesting from izirayd. Yeah. Bolas, I mean, they're basically like a heavier dot in this situation. It's a bit easier to go in against Orgus and take them out, as well as Minotaurs, but yeah, I don't consider Bolas to be that particularly strong against tanks that you would go for them just for that. izirayd likes to go for lances late game though, so it's probably a combination of like going Bolas and Scalpel. Scalpels are hard to deal with for tanks because tanks have no real skirmisher. While Reavers, on the other hand, don't have any real skirmishes either, so Ogre kind of can act like a skirmisher against Reavers. So going for Scalpel switch against tanks, that makes sense. Because, yeah, there's no easy way to counter the capability of it. You either need to like run down the Scalpels with speed, or you need to like sit behind a stinger and use like emissaries and stuff like that. So at this point, I'd say it's still looking pretty even actually. And you have a bit larger armor value than him. Yeah. And I think your attrition has been decent in this game. As you can see, and that's expected to be as tanks. If you're playing Reavers as tanks, you're expected to have a pretty good attrition. But you're also expected to expand a bit slower because welders are a little slower and more expensive than welders, than masons, I mean. So masons can expand a bit faster. And yeah, once you're out of the Kodachi states, your units are a bit slower than Reavers in general. So this is a line that's hard to approach. You definitely shouldn't be tanking the shots with the ogres first, I think. But the Scalpels are kinda distracted, so you didn't get punished for it too bad. Yeah, you should really try to lead with the Minotaur so they take the first shots. And yeah. Yeah. And this emissary is really forward in this forward position. I'm not sure. Like, yeah, you can see on the radar that the enemy has a lot of fast units, and there's incoming Scalpels. And Scalpels counter Ogres pretty well. So yeah. It's iffy to try to keep this position. Like you have welders here, you could try to make Lotus turrets. Lotus turrets are decent against Scalpels because they distract them, and they actually, if there is just even number, they trade pretty well. So Lotus turrets is a decent choice to go against Scalpels. And if you have the time to get up a Stinger, that's a really good defense. Like, if you get but maybe you don't want to be that defensive in this position. It depends. But yeah. I didn't think that was a good position to keep the emissary in. You really need to keep your emissary alive, and it's fairly easy to keep emissaries alive because they're really fast. On the other hand, this run by is not gonna be that cost effective, I think, for izirayd. So at this point, yeah, you're sending a few ogres back. Yeah, 2 ogres might be able to deal with this. Maybe 3. It depends. Sending your whole army, you probably don't want to face this Scalpel army piecemeal. Yeah, so now that you have a... Now izirayd is able to being outmaneuver you and keep up on you on the map. Yeah, this would be a pretty big loss. Yeah. Yeah, you didn't even get to repair. That's a pretty good big loss. That you should be really careful. At this point, I wouldn't say you have lost. But yeah, you should be really careful with how you send out units. You have 2 emissaries. If you just make a stinger in a like central position on the map, you can hold that position fairly well. And then you have the minotaurs to tank around the stinger. And then you have the emissaries to target at range. Yeah. Let's see how this engagement goes. So yeah, the first minotaur targeted some of them. And yeah. I wouldn't... It's iffy if you wanna... I don't think you wanna run into this. Yeah, you could have... I'd say if you had retreated after like killing like 4 or 5 Scalpels and then yeah, and lost a Minotaur, you would have made a good trade. But you can't chase after all these units, all the Scalpels in a line like this, because yeah, that's really bad. Because if they bunch up like this, they're gonna be in the way of each other, and you just get a conga line, and all the units die there. So yeah, if you look at the attrition, it just went into izirayd's favor, basically. As, yeah. And now your emissaries are completely without defense, and they're getting run down. So yeah, that's the definite death nail in the coffin, so to speak. But yeah, it was pretty even until that point. Yeah, so yeah. I also haven't seen much repairing done on your tanks. Like, I didn't notice you repairing at all. Maybe you did some repairs, but yeah, in general, you should have to repair the minotaurs to keep them effective. So one suggestion is to consider cycling of units when you're using minotaurs. It depends on the number of scalpels and yeah, the number of enemy units they have. But if you have like 2-3 minotaurs, you send in 1 minotaur first, and it soaks up a few scalpel shots, and then you send in the next one to chase it up, and it has like full HP and can tank a few more and start killing the scalpels. It also depends a lot on the position and the numbers, but yeah. Yeah, so yeah, pretty well played still, I'd say. You can see the game was pretty even throughout. Actually, you were even in the lead quite a bit there and then, but then you sacrifice your army in a conga line. So yeah, your army value dipped, and yeah, the attrition that you had built up through the game and being efficient with your tanks. Well, to say, you could have probably repaired a bit more, but still, you were decently efficient with your tanks, and then you lost it all in one big blow. And if we look at metal produce, yeah, izirayd was able to get a bit more metal than you, but not that much actually. So yeah, so if I have some tips for you, is to think about the positional play. Like for example, you didn't know there was an expansion here, and you drove all your Kodachis here. Yeah. Now they're out of the fight, but then you didn't really think about how you would pull them back, and you went into the defenses here. If you had paid more attention, you would have avoided the defense and gone here or gone back here. And then you lost a lot of momentum while these Kodachis was out of the fight. And then you missed the commander kill here. Like, for some reason, I missed the part where izirayd jumped the first time. But for some reason, he jumped the first time. And that means you had 2 Minotaurs here. Then you had plenty of time to go in and kill him. If you had seen that jump done, yeah, you would have plenty of time to kill that commander there before it could go to the edge and jump down. Another thing to think about this map is that for recon commanders, when they're jumping into the water, they have to be standing right next to the edge of the map to jump down, because otherwise, if they try to jump from here and jump to that point, yeah, and like jump down there, yeah, it's gonna struggle to jump. Yeah, it will be obstructed by the cliff, so to speak. And that applies to pretty much all holes on this map. Yeah. So yeah, it's still like the Scorcher Kodachi micro is a lot about positioning. A Scorcher can't chase down a Kodachi, but a Kodachi can't chase down a Scorcher either. And also the Scorcher want to be as close to the Kodachi as possible. Then the Scorcher can even win 1v1 if it actually gets in that close. But on the other hand, if you just manage to turn in time, the Scorcher won't get that close, and you can kill it with the Kodachi. But your Kodachi might still be hurt a lot. But it can still regenerate a bit and stuff like that, so it's not completely useless. And darts, yeah, darts can, yeah. So the switch from going into ogres from Kodachis, yeah, if you're going for that switch, you have to be careful. Like, where are you positioning your ogres? Are you not being outmaneuvered and surrounded by darts and ravagers and scorchers, for example? And yeah. And also, I don't be afraid of building stingers. Like, I know they can be countered by lance, but lances are slow. And personally, even if you start porking the map at certain points and enemy starts making lances, if you have emissaries, I find that a pretty even fight to fight. If you're confident in an artillery duel against lances with emissaries, then it's good. But if you don't feel confident against beating lances in an artillery duel, then maybe you won't try to go for a lot of stingers and emissaries. But it depends if you want to take that fight or not. And yeah, scalp hells are hard to deal with. You have to like run them down with minotaurs or hide behind stingers or try to surround them. Yeah, it's difficult. But the biggest mistake you made was to run your conga line of units into all the scalpels. That was really unnecessary. Yeah, and that's it for this analysis. Good luck and have fun.